He moved out the day before Thanksgiving. Dinner that night was cut up hot dogs and pork and beans. He said it was one of the best Thanksgivings of his life. Norm left that comment in our community. In this video, I'm going to show you what the daily life of an older man living alone actually looks like, not the version everyone assumes. And later in this video, I'm going to share a line from our comment section that is the most honest thing anyone has ever said about this life in one sentence. Because the story you've been told about men who live alone is dead wrong, and the men who are living it are going to show you it's not as dark as people think. Here's what everyone assumes. The man who lives alone at 65 is lonely, sad, going through the motions. He's eating cereal over the sink in a dark apartment, watching the clock, waiting for someone to call. Maybe he's let himself go a little. There's a quiet desperation to it. Or so the story goes. He made choices that led him here, and now he's paying the price. That's the picture people paint. Your family uses it when they give you the look at Thanksgiving. The buddy at work is picturing it when he says, "Don't you want companionship?" Every well-meaning person who's never lived this is projecting it onto you. And it's wrong. Almost completely wrong. Here's the one number that dismantles the whole thing. People in their 40s and 50s are lonelier than people over 60. Not slightly, significantly. The loneliest demographic in America right now is middle-aged, and most of them are in relationships, married, partnered, surrounded by people, and lonelier than the man sitting on his back porch alone on a Friday night with a cigar. The men asking if you're lonely statistically are lonelier than you are. Isolation is being by yourself. Loneliness is not liking it. Those are not the same thing. A man can live alone and be completely at ease. Another man can go to 5 social events a week and come home feeling like nobody in any of those rooms actually knows him. The walls don't cause the loneliness. The wrong people do. Nearly 1 in 3 older Americans lives alone right now. About 16 million people. 6 million of them are men. In 1950, it was 1 in 10. This isn't a crisis, it's a shift. And what that shift actually looks like day to day. That's what this video is about. The lie says these men are sad. The second part of the lie says that if they're not sad, something must be wrong with them. Like contentment itself is suspicious. Let's start with Tuesday morning. He wakes up when he wakes up. Not when someone else's schedule pulls him out of sleep. Not when a problem walks through the door before he's had 10 minutes to himself. His eyes open. He looks at the ceiling. And the first thing he registers is that nothing is required of him yet. He gets up, makes his coffee, stands at the window, or sits wherever he feels like sitting. Nobody walks through and changes the energy of the room. If you've ever lived with someone who could change the entire atmosphere of a space just by entering it, you know exactly what I mean by that. Or the quick calculation of what kind of morning it's going to be. Gone. Just him and the coffee in the morning, doing whatever the morning is going to do. And that's just Tuesday. Let me tell you what Tuesday night looks like. Not a big occasion, not a restaurant, not a birthday, just dinner that a man cooks for himself because he felt like it. He decides what's on the menu. Nobody's negotiating. Nobody's commenting on what he chose or how long it took. He cooks it the way he likes it. Maybe he eats at the table. Maybe he eats on the couch watching something he actually wants to watch. When he's done, the kitchen is exactly as messy as he made it. His mess, his schedule, that's it. A thing so small it sounds almost stupid to describe. Except the men who spent decades not having it know exactly what it cost. A man in our community goes by Munong. Grim spent 4 decades putting someone else's needs first. And when he got his life back, the first thing he rediscovered was something he'd given up years ago without even noticing. I'm going to tell you what it was. But first, let me show you what the rest of the week looks like for these men. Because Tuesday morning and Tuesday dinner are just the entry points. What comes next is the part that surprises people. And later in this video, that Munong Grim line I mentioned, the most honest thing anyone has ever said about this life, you'll know it when you hear it. Here's what the rest of the week actually looks like. Beyond Tuesday morning, beyond Tuesday dinner, what does the life consist of when a man stops performing for other people and starts building something for himself? Robert Allen from the community comments is 55, 3 marriages behind him. Every Friday evening, he sits on the back porch of his farm, lights a cigar, pours a nice drink, and looks out over the land. That's it. That's his Friday. No negotiating what the weekend is going to look like. No events he agreed to that he doesn't want to attend. No performance required of him in the next 48 hours. Just a man, a cigar, a view, and the specific pleasure of a Friday evening that belongs entirely to him. He said something that I want to sit with. He said he's not lonely, but more than that, he's excited about what the future holds. Something he never felt being married. Excited at 55, 3 marriages in, sitting on a farm porch with a cigar, excited about what's coming, not managing expectations, not bracing for the next thing to go sideways, genuinely looking forward. When's the last time you heard a married man say that without immediately checking to see if his wife was within earshot? Another brother from the community, runs with wins, is 65, 5 years out. He said the relief was incredible and immediate, not gradual, not something that took months to arrive. Immediate, like the pressure dropped the moment the decision was made. Now he goes fly fishing when he wants. Good cigars on his schedule, his terms. Nobody's opinion consulted on where he goes, or how long he stays, or whether the fish are biting. One more community comment because this is just too good. Damark 721 is 55, veteran, 2 divorces, retired early, earlier than most people think is possible. He's currently traveling the country in a camper with his dog. No fixed address, no fixed schedule, wherever the road goes. When someone asked him how life was going, he said, and I'm quoting, "Going awesome, baby." No hesitation, no qualifier, just going awesome. These men aren't surviving the single life. They didn't settle into it reluctantly after running out of options. They built something inside it deliberately on purpose. And the result is Friday cigars on farm porches and fly fishing on Thursdays, and dogs in campers rolling down highways toward wherever. Picture this. Early morning, small motorboat. Just him and the dog with a rod in the water and nowhere to be until he decides there's somewhere to be. No texts, no situations that need managing before he's had 10 minutes to himself. Just the water, the dog, and the specific quiet of a morning that belongs entirely to him. That's not a man who gave up. That's a man who figured out exactly what a Tuesday morning is worth. Now remember Moon on Grimm? I told you he rediscovered something he'd given up years ago without noticing. Here's what it was. Talking to himself. She didn't allow it. So somewhere around year 3 or 4, he stopped. Just quietly dropped the habit because it wasn't worth the friction. For 4 decades, 40 years, he didn't do it. One of those small things that slowly got edited out of who he was, without anyone making a formal announcement about it. Now he carries on full conversations with himself whenever he wants. In the kitchen, in the car, wherever, without getting chewed out for it. Think about that for a second. Not the dramatic losses, the house, the retirement account, the years, the small things, the hobbies that became inconvenient, the version of yourself that got slowly compressed to make room for somebody else's comfort. He also mentioned he's still unloading her stuff to Goodwill 2 years later. Found her Letterman jacket from high school in a closet. 1980s, still there. And then, and I need you to hear this exactly as he wrote it, he said, "The nookie was nice, but it ain't worth the price." I'm going to let that breathe for a second. The nookie was nice, but it ain't worth the price. That is the most honest sentence anyone has ever written in a YouTube comment section. And the price he's talking about isn't just money. It's 40 years of mornings where someone else decided what the day was going to feel like before it started. And here's one more thing these men found that nobody ever talks about. The health. One man in our comments, retired, been living alone 6 years, said his doctor told him his blood pressure had dropped significantly since he left. He wasn't doing anything differently. No special diet, no new exercise routine. He just stopped living in a house where the atmosphere shifted every time someone walked in. Turns out chronic stress has a billing address, and when you move, the bill stops coming. And here's the piece of this life that always surprises people. The one that answers the thing everyone assumes, that a man living alone must have cut off everyone. Picture this, Saturday afternoon. He's out front with his grandkids. 2 of them, training wheels just came off last week. One hand on the back of the seat running alongside, letting go at exactly the right moment. Kid wobbles, catches it, keeps going. He's laughing. They're laughing. Nobody's tracking his time or what he spent this week. When they go home, he goes inside, sits down, puts his feet up, and the house is quiet again. His quiet, the kind he chose. That's not isolation. That's presence on his own terms. There's a difference. These men didn't cut everyone off. They cut the draining ones off. And the ones who are left, the grandkids, the real friends, the actual family, they get something better. A man who's actually glad to be there, not a man who's performing it. And here's the part that ties all of this together. Because everything we've looked at so far, the Tuesday, the fishing, the farm porch, the conversations with himself in the kitchen, none of it mentions the number that might be the most compelling argument of all, and I'm going to give it to you right now. The average single man spends about $600 a month. The average married couple spends about $7,400. That's $2,800 a month less, or about $33,000 a year that a man keeps when he's running his own life on his own terms. Not because he's cheap or depriving himself or sitting in a dark apartment eating cereal. It's because the overhead that comes with maintaining someone else's lifestyle, her preferences, her social calendar, her family's emergencies, the events you attend out of obligation, the gifts for people you barely know, quietly disappears. And you don't realize how much it was costing you until it's gone, and you look at your bank account and think, where has this money been hiding? A man in our community left this comment a few weeks back. He said, I'm retired with a pension and Social Security. When I had a girlfriend, I wasn't able to save any money. Now I put in even $1,000 a month into savings. That's not a budget cut. That's a dividend. And here's the thing, nobody ever brings up in these conversations. The same people who look at a man living alone and assume something's missing. Those same people have never once added up what the alternative actually costs. They talk about companionship like it's free, like it shows up with no overhead, no maintenance, no slow financial bleed running quietly in the background of everything. It is not free, not even close. Picture this, Saturday morning. He's in his garage, a project he's been meaning to get to for 2 years. Engine, woodwork, whatever it is. It doesn't matter because the point is he's getting to it now. No timeline except the one he set. Nobody walking through asking when it'll be done, or why it matters, or whether he could be doing something more useful with his Saturday. Just a man and a project and the specific satisfaction of working on something because he wants to, not because he scheduled it in between everything else that needed him first. His money goes where he points it, every dollar. And for the first time in however many years, he's the one doing the pointing. A man in the comments section, Mike D8876, is 77. Pension stacking, Social Security stacking. His next-door neighbor, the alpha male, the guy who got the girl, is miserable at 50 and looking over the fence. And that neighbor straight up tells him he did it right. His wife sometimes yells at him. The neighbor's wife, she gets going, and Mike D8876 just walks into his house or takes a walk down the street. Happy as a pig, 77 years old. Pension, no drama. Neighbor confessing envy from his own front yard. That's not a consolation prize. That is the destination. What's on the other side of the choice everyone in your life told you not to make? And here's the thing nobody warns you about when you get there. If you've already made this choice, you know exactly what I'm about to say. There's a specific thing that happens. It comes from somewhere you don't expect. And it's the reason a lot of men quietly doubt themselves for about 10 seconds before they come back to their senses and remember what the alternative actually felt like. The opinions, not from strangers, from people who know you. The sibling who calls twice a year and uses one of those calls to let you know they're worried. The adult kid who spends 6 months barely checking in and then has a lot to say about whether your life looks right to them. The old friends, the married ones who can't quite look at your contentment without making it about them. And they all use the same word. Lonely. Are you lonely? Don't you get lonely? I'd be so lonely if I were you. Here's what I want you to understand about that question. It's not really about you. When those people imagine living alone, truly imagine it, what they're picturing is their life minus the other person. And in their life, that would be devastating because in their life, the relationship is doing a lot of heavy lifting, filling the gaps, providing the schedule, the purpose, the person who knows what's happening with you. For these men, those gaps were filled differently or never existed the same way to begin with. The community is the golf Wednesday, the guys on the river at dawn, the friends who would actually show up with a truck. The calendar is their own. The purpose was never borrowed from someone else. So when they hear the question, "Are you lonely?" what they feel isn't recognition. It's the mild amusement of someone being asked if they miss a commute they don't have anymore. Lonely compared to what? Compared to the evening spent managing somebody's mood before dinner? Compared to the holidays where everyone's performing contentment at a table full of people who'd rather be somewhere else? Compared to the marriage where your buddy at work stays late every night because his car is quieter than his own house? A man in our community, Madison, Kansas, ran a quiet experiment a few years back. He noticed he was always the one sending Christmas cards first, and that 80% of the time he only got one back after he'd already sent his. So one year he sent 0 cards, waited, he got 1 card back, but that was from his bank. That's not loneliness. That's the evidence a man collects when he finally stops being the one who initiates everything. The bank sent a card, the people didn't. He's not lonely. He's just done pretending otherwise. These men aren't lonely, they graduated. And the people asking the question are still in the school that these men already finished. And in a minute, I'm going to bring Norm back. The hot dogs, the 1987 Thanksgiving, because there's a specific question that comes up every single time a man lives this life. And Norm answered it without ever meaning to. Stay with me. It's the holiday question, and every man living this life has heard it. Thanksgiving 1987. Norm, he moved out the day before. The family holiday, the one that's supposed to require presence and performance, and everyone gathered around a table pretending things are better than they are. He wasn't there. He was in his own place alone, eating cut-up hot dogs and pork and beans. One of the best Thanksgivings of his life. Not because hot dogs are better than turkey, because peace is better than performance, because a meal eaten in a quiet room where nobody needs anything from you can feel like more than 20 years of holidays spent managing the temperature of a table full of people who weren't entirely glad you were there. That's the truth nobody tells you about living alone. That ordinary moments become yours in a way they never were before. Tuesday evenings, Friday nights, Thanksgiving dinner with hot dogs. These aren't sad alternatives to the real thing. For these men, they are the real thing. What about Christmas? Isn't it hard to be alone on Christmas? And the honest answer from the men who've been doing this for years is that it depends entirely on what you're comparing it to. For a lot of these men, the holidays alone are quieter than the holidays with the wrong people. You can sit with a cup of coffee and watch it snow and feel genuinely at ease. Or you can sit at a table full of people and feel more alone than you ever have in your life because not one of them is actually glad you're there. They're just doing the obligation. Think about how many holiday dinners you've sat through where you were going through the motions, where everyone was going through the motions, where the conversation stayed in the safe lanes because the real stuff couldn't be said at that table, and you drove home full of food and completely empty of anything that mattered. Now think about Norm, hot dogs and pork and beans alone, best Thanksgiving of his life. The meal wasn't the point. The absence of performance was the point. The table with nothing required of him. The evening that didn't need managing. The first holiday that actually felt like rest instead of work. The loneliness at a crowded table hits different than the solitude of a quiet morning. One of them you chose. The other chose you whether you wanted it or not. And these men chose. They found their routines. The Saturday at the river with the rod in the water and the dog on the bow. The fly fishing on a Thursday because Thursday works and nobody's negotiating. Picture this. Wednesday morning. He's at the golf course with 2 or 3 guys he's known for years. Nice clothes because why not? It's his money and his Wednesday. Cigar going, golf cart rolling over the hill, and the view opens up. Green for as far as you can see, sky doing what it's going to do. Nobody anywhere near him who needs anything. He lines up the shot, takes it, gets back in the cart. The conversation is whatever they feel like talking about. No performance, no temperature to take. Just 4 men on a golf course on a Wednesday morning because they all decided that's what Wednesday was for. That's not retirement as consolation prize. That's retirement as the point. The things that got squeezed out over the years, the hobbies, the habits, The version of themselves they quietly set aside came back. Not all at once, but they came back. Moonrim talks to himself in the kitchen now. 40 years he couldn't. Now he does it whenever he wants. Robert Allen has his Friday farm porch cigar view over the land every week. No negotiation required. Dan Marks is somewhere on the road right now. Camper, dog, next destination unknown. Runs with winds is at the river. Fly rod in the water. Nobody expecting him anywhere before he decides to show up. Norm found Thanksgiving, hot dogs, and pork and beans in 1987. Still talking about it decades later because it was that good. What these men have in common isn't that they gave up on connection. It's that they stopped accepting the counterfeit version as the real thing. They stopped filling their lives with presence that wasn't really presence. And in the space that cleared out, they found the things that actually fit. Let me say something to the man watching this who already knows exactly what I'm describing. You're not broken. You're not the cautionary tale they think you are. You looked at what the alternative actually cost in money, in mornings, in the small daily freedoms that got so quietly compressed you didn't realize they were gone. And you made a decision not out of bitterness or fear or because you gave up, but because you finally ran the same honest accounting on your relationships that you ran on everything else. The men in these comments in their 50s, 60s, and 70s are not pining for what they left behind. They built something. A Friday ritual, a Saturday morning on the water, a Tuesday night dinner where they get to decide what's on the menu. Out on the water at 6 a.m. with the dog before the rest of the world is moving. Working on the garage project they've been putting off for years, reading the book they actually want to read, calling the friend just because they felt like it. And to the man still on the fence, still fielding the concerned questions from people who assume you must be suffering. Look at Norm. Hot dogs on Thanksgiving, and he's still smiling about it 37 years later. Mike D at 77. Pension, happy as a pig. Neighbor envying him over the fence. Robert Allen on that farm porch every Friday. Not lonely, excited. They were all exactly where you are, and not one of them would trade it. Drop your age in the comments and tell me, what does your version of this life look like? I read every single one, and the best stories go into future videos. If this story changed the way you look at the solitude of a man's life, please subscribe and like the channel. We are uncovering the history and the truths that society often tries to bury. Plant the seeds for your own future. The next treasure of wisdom will be open soon.